What is up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Uberkooledgarage. On this week's episode, we're going to hop into Ryan's Ghia. We're going to get the motor test fit, some of the engine components put on it. It is a very large engine, with it being a 6-cylinder and the Subaru 5-speed, so quite a bit of test fitting and stuff like that, but we did get it in the car, so I am also working on a bug video. Hopefully that'll probably come next week, as I'm waiting for a couple parts for Ryan's car. We're gonna end up painting a couple things for him and getting all that stuff situated. The bug video should be pretty cool. I'm going to try and do a lot on it. So hope you guys enjoy this video, and we'll see you guys at the end. Well, back on Ryan's car, I went ahead and went to the dealership, picked up some flywheel bolts and some clutch bolts. I do already have 3 of these, so I should be able to get that out, or get that on. All of the flywheel bolts are here. I'm going to go ahead and get the flywheel bolted up, cleaned off, and then get the clutch installed. And then we'll hop into the transmission, get all of that stuff situated, and put this thing together. And then we can start trying to get it to fit in the car. So, should be pretty interesting here pretty quick. And the rest of the stuff after that, axles and all that stuff, we'll go ahead and figure that out once we get it in there. So let's get to moving. Okay, so it turns out that I did not have the correct bolts. So called Subaru, they ordered me some more. They will be here on Tuesday, which is when this video will come out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slap the transmission on here and try and test fit it into the car. See how much of this I have to cut out. I still have to do the lash on the trans, but I figure with all of that coming in and out of the car, it's probably going to be in and out a couple times. So what I'm going to do is I'll just tag this to the motor, get it in the car where it needs to be, get all the sheet metal and everything cut out around it, nice and tight and clean. I also have to figure out how I'm going to get this motor and transmission into the car, whether I'm going to drop it in with the cherry picker or try and jack the car up high enough to slide this underneath, which I highly doubt. So I got to figure that out. And then once I get those bolts, I'll pull the motor out, get those bolts installed permanently. There's a couple things on the motor that I'm still not sure if I have to take off or not, but we will see when we get there. And then I will pull the transmission apart, get the lash done on that. I'll go ahead and paint the transmission for Ryan, and we'll clean the motor back up, put them back together completely 100% all the way. And then we'll get it actually slid in the car where it needs to be, and then start working on all the other stuff. Just because I don't want to paint the transmission now and get the lash all situated and then get it all gross and messed up, screw up the paint, pulling it in and out of the car. So we'll do the lash and stuff a little bit later. I do have to, for the nose cone, drill a separate hole for the shifter to go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that nose cone and line it up in the car, figure out where I need to drill my hole. That way the transmission will go in there, and then we'll get all this stuff tagged in. Okay, so I went ahead and test fit the motor last night. It was a little too dark to film. I just wanted to get a rough idea of where I was at on everything. I will insert a picture right here showing how far I got it in. So it didn't quite fit. So what I'm gonna end up doing is there's a factory body line right here. So what I'm gonna end up doing is I'll cut this body line straight back here, all the way back, get a nice straight cut on both sides, and this rear apron section will remove. And then the motor will be able to slide directly into it rather than up and down or under and up. So going under and up the car, I would almost need a lift to do that. I can't get the car high enough up on jack stands to get the motor underneath. The motor is very large. So with the apron being removable, it'll be able to go straight into the car. And then I will make plates that all of this stuff will bolt right back in. Another good thing with removing the apron is I don't have to cut as much out. The motor does actually fit in between the factory rails on both sides. I might have to get rid of the channels on both sides for the rubber. But other than that, the motor actually fits in here. And then I'll have to trim some of this section out here, take this corner out, and probably take this corner out. And then the motor should fit very, very, very nicely in there. I actually don't even have to cut any of this out here, which is really nice. So with this apron being removable, you should have a very simple, very clean engine install. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this stuff out, and then we will get this motor in here. Well, that should be enough room. As you saw in the time lapse, there is about half an inch of Bondo in this corner, as well as the apron. So what I'll end up doing is now that all this is open and free, I'll go ahead and sand this down, pound it out, that way it matches on both sides. Clean up all these edges, get it all nice and clean. These brackets were part of the apron, so those will get cut off on both sides, cleaned up as well. And then we will go ahead and test fit the motor and trim out what we need to trim out. But with this being the way that it is, definitely not going to have to trim out very much, which is nice. So let's go ahead and test fit this motor and see what we got. Well, it's close. Unfortunately, it's a little too close. So I still have about 2.5 inches or so from the engine mount to the actual frame horns. There you go. So still got a little ways to go. Everything else is fitting okay. So as of right now, I'm hitting on the heater tubes down here. Sorry, it's super bright, guys. So heading on the heater tubes down there, and then throttle body and stuff is basically against the firewall, as well as the part of the intake manifold down here. So I'm going to have to trim out this back firewall section to get it to fit, which is fine. I'll kind of do what I did with Zach's car and make that whole panel removable. That way you can get to the starter and stuff from up top. Otherwise it is not very fun to get to. So I'll cut that whole section out, keep it in one piece. That way I can weld extensions onto it and have it bolt in. But other than that, I mean, this thing's really close to going in. It looks really good. Throttle body and intake are going to be interesting. I'm not 100% sure on what I'm going to do with that yet. I almost thought about running a intake pipe into the firewall and then through the car and then back down and maybe set the air filter down in this section here. So we'll see how that turns out. Start getting an idea on radiator pipes and all that stuff. But let's get this thing to actually sit in the car. So we'll pull it back out, cut that firewall, and slide it back in and see what we got. Well, after some more cutting and one more test fit, Went ahead and got the motor in there all on its own. There are a couple things that are tight, so fuel lines here. I'll end up moving some of this stuff around. I'll bend the bracket to get it away from the spring. Down here, this fuel line's right up against the firewall, so I'm either going to notch that out and put in a round piece to kind of cup around the fuel cell. And then right here, I had to bend this metal out to get it in, so I'll trim this back around here and then around and then back. That way you can get the motor in and out, and it'll have a little bit of wiggle room for the engine mounts. So that's really no big deal. This side's free and clear all the way around, so that worked out. I did have to, it is on a jack on one side right now. The frame horn bolt isn't straight, so I think what's going on is the frame horns are twisted in a little bit. So I will pull the motor out, trans out, get the engine bracket in, and then drop the whole thing in. I also had to notch out the front piece of the tunnel up here that goes above the transmission, so that's notched out, and I had to open up the hole around the shifter a little bit more. So all of that's all cleaned up, ready to go. Building a sheet metal cap over that to rebuild the firewall is really easy in the Ghia because there's already a tray up there, so that's all underneath the tray, which worked out great. Everything else seems pretty good. So just those couple little things to trim, and everything back here looks pretty good. I might have to cut out some of the package tray in the rear a little bit for the starter, but other than that, just a little bit of trimming modifications here and there. I'll go through and get rid of all the random tabs and stuff that aren't needed. The wiring harness for the Volkswagen side of things will get rerouted, tucked up nice and clean. So like this bracket here will come out, get all shaved up. I'll go ahead and fix a couple things on this side. But that is what a 6-cylinder Subaru motor looks like in the back of the Ghia. So we'll continue on with this stuff, start getting a parts list together, fuel lines and fuel pump and all that stuff. I'll probably go pick up radiator lines hopefully this week. I got to figure out how to tie both of these into one single, so I'll have to find a Y that Y's off here, and then that'll go over into the expansion tank like I usually do. It just makes it way easier to fill the car up with coolant. We'll start getting into mounting the radiator and all of that stuff as well. I'm going to do a nut and bolt check, kind of like I did with Zach's Ghia. Make sure that everything's tight. Make sure, there's nothing wonky going on with suspension or steering or any of that. So we'll just continue on with this car, get it as far as we can, as quick as we can. But as of right now, we're looking pretty darn good. Okay, so I just got done with the clip that you just saw. You notice this airbox in here that I'm not 100% sure on where it goes or what it does, but it does not allow the hood to close. So I'm gonna have to pull that off. I think the hinge is actually hitting on the intake right there as well. So that's one thing that I'll have to figure out. All right, guys, so that's all I have for you this week. Very excited that we got the motor in the car. I still have quite a bit of little things to do to finalize everything, but it is in the car, so we'll pull it back out. We'll finish up the transmission stuff. We'll go ahead and paint a lot of the stuff needed to get the motor back in the car for good. I'm going to pick up those clutch bolts today, or when this video is coming out, so it'll be tomorrow, but get those put in there permanently. That way it can all go together once everything's painted. Should be pretty cool. Definitely looking forward to finishing off a lot of the stuff on his car. I'm probably going to pick up radiator lines hopefully this week coming up. If I get a day of work that I'm a little slow, I'll run over and grab those. The bug video should be super awesome. I've done a lot of work on it. You might be able to kind of see a glimpse of something in this video right here. But for now, that's it for this episode. If you guys haven't, go ahead and hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, comment if you have any questions. I try and get back to everybody. Thank you guys so much for all the support you guys have shown in the last couple months of building all of these, actually in the last couple years. Doesn't seem like I've been on YouTube that long, but I guess I have been. So thank you guys. We will see you guys on the next one. Peace out, guys.